Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple had their spring-loaded event with a bunch of new product announcements, and many of you were asking me to sort of do a reaction video or talk about what I thought about the event overall. And so I thought we'd just have sort of a conversation about what went on, talk about the release dates and things, and what I thought about them overall. Now, the first thing is that Apple started off with some services. They started off with new Apple Card services for couples. So maybe you're a couple or you have a spouse that you want to share your credit with, your credit card, and build credit history together. Apple showed that you'll be able to do this soon with Apple Card. On their website, they say Apple introduces Apple Card Family, enabling people to share Apple Card and build credit together. This allows you not only to do that, but also to share your card with, say, someone that's 13 or older in your family. So you have a child, you want them to maybe use your card while they're away on a trip, at college, something like that. You'll be able to do that. Of course, they'll have to be responsible, and maybe you'll have limits to those. I'm not sure how Apple will do that, but we should see that very soon. So they announced that today. I think this is great for those that have a hard time getting credit, for example. I think it'll be a great way to maybe build credit. We'll have to see how that works, though. Now, Apple also introduced podcast subscriptions today. Now, they're not available yet, but you did see some huge changes with iOS 14.5 and their podcast app. They completely redid it. They added your little icon in the upper right to help you subscribe to different podcasts, and so we should have that soon. So along with that, you'll have channels and recommendations for new channels. If you're browsing, for example, you have the Apple event here, as you can see, but that along with all the different things with iOS 14.5 launches next month. So we won't see all of the features for podcasts until next month. 14.5 will be out before then, but it's nice to see that, and you'll be able to subscribe and avoid commercials, for example. So maybe Apple's trying to compete with Spotify, and we'll see some changes there, I'm not sure, but we should have maybe some paid content in podcasts. We'll have to wait and see what Apple plans to do with that. Now, other than that, Apple finally announced AirTags. Now, we've been waiting for AirTags for a long time, and AirTags are something that we saw in the code for a long time, and a lot of people thought would never actually happen. But it works pretty seamlessly with Find My, and I think this was the most impressive thing, is with an AirTag, what it is, if you're not familiar with it, is a little tag you can put in a backpack, maybe on a keychain, that helps you locate those things if you lose them. Now, if you do lose them, your phone using the Find My app will help you locate it. And the most impressive thing is in the video, they showed a demo where it would actually tell you the direction and how far you were from that little AirTag. So it uses the AirTag and it relays back through other people's iPhones securely and anonymously to tell you where your AirTag is actually located. So I can't wait to try those out. They're $29 for one, and they are $99 for four of them. There's also a bunch of accessories such as keychains and things you'll see soon. So they announced that, and we should see those very, very soon. It uses the U1 chipset to locate the AirTags. I can't wait to try it out, and it'll be helpful maybe to throw in backpacks, like I said, maybe other places, maybe a jacket or something else. Now, along with that, Apple also announced a purple iPhone 12 and 12 mini. I don't know that it was necessary, but people obviously will like different colors of phones, so now there's a purple option. That will actually be out on the 30th. You can pre-order it on the 23rd, or this Friday. Now, they didn't really announce it in the event, but there's new spring cases and watch bands, and I do plan to get some of those if I can. So there's only 4 new colors. There's one leather new color, and then one of the slipcase new colors, purple mostly for the new colors of leather, but there's those available along with new Apple Watch bands. So those should be out pretty soon for all the different iPhones. Unfortunately, not iPhone 11, for example, just the new iPhones. Now, something I've been wanting for a long time is a new Apple TV. My Apple TV starts to feel very slow nowadays and has some bugs from time to time, and Apple announced a new Apple TV 4K. It has the A12 Bionic CPU in it, so it's not brand new, but it's not terribly old. It's basically the same CPU or a variant of the CPU that's in my iPad that I have my notes on here, and it's very, very fast. So it's more than capable enough for an Apple TV, and the nice thing about it is it's not only HDR, of course, like we would expect, but it also can do 120 hertz or faster frame rates. Now, it only has 32 and 64 gigabyte storage options, like they did before, basically, and it's $179 or $199. I would have liked to see this a little bit cheaper, $99 or $149, but that's the current price, and that's what it's going to be at for a while. Maybe you'll get it free through your different cable provider or subscription, something like that in the future. I'm not sure. It's just an idea. But one of the things I thought was really impressive with this is that you can color calibrate your TV using your iPhone and the new Apple TV. You can use your iPhone, put it up to the TV, it helps calibrate it, and then the Apple TV will adjust to make the picture more accurate, more like the creator of the movie wanted it to be. So this is something that a lot of people pay professional calibrators to come and calibrate their TVs, or you could do it yourself with different tools, and now you'll be able to do it with your iPhone. It'll be really interesting to see what it looks like with maybe compared to a professional calibration tool as compared to what the iPhone can do with it. But I can't wait to try that out. And of course, a lot of people have been wanting a new remote, and I haven't really wanted a new remote, but a lot of people do. And now there's a new Siri remote. You can actually see what the remote looks like a little bit in iOS 14.5 release candidate in the control center. It looks kind of like the older Apple TV remote, but it's larger, and the ring on it seems to be sort of a scroll wheel like an iPod. So it has that, and then on the side it has a Siri button, very familiar compared to what we have on an iPhone. In fact, Apple actually mentioned that they have one on the side of the iPhone, or they said it's like the Siri button on the side of your iPhone. So something I look forward to. I've wanted a new Apple TV for a while with new capabilities, and that is available for pre-order on the 30th and comes out the second half of May. In fact, the next things that I'm going to mention come out the second half of May. I think they might have had some issues with the supply chain, or they didn't want to specify a date, but they could get it within that range, so it comes out then. Now, what they announced kind of surprised a lot of us in some ways and not some other ways, but this, I think, was something I was looking really forward to. I'm not sure what I think about it. I want to give it some more time to think about it. But they announced a new iMac. Now, this new iMac comes in 7 different colors, and they're very vibrant. They almost look like they're not real. So I can't wait to see them, but they're blue, green, pink, silver, yellow, orange, and purple. And the new iMac is 11.5 millimeters thin. Now, to give you a comparison, the iPhone 12 Pro Max is 7.4 millimeters thin. So incredibly thin, and maybe with the camera bump, it's about the same thickness. So incredibly thin. It's only 24 inches, though. They didn't announce a larger one, so that kind of disappointed me a little bit, but it's 24 inches and has a 4.5K display, 4480 by 2520, with a pixel density of 218 pixels per inch, 500 nits of brightness, and P3 wide color with True Tone. That didn't really surprise me. That's about right for that iMac. But the one thing that did surprise me is it still has a chin. I really thought they'd get rid of the chin. In fact, they show this is where the processor fits, and it's the M1 processor. It's the same CPU that's in the new MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and Mac Mini. Exact same thing, same specs. You can get it up to 16 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage. Exactly the same as the MacBook Pro. But it has 2 fans to help keep it cool. So maybe it can perform a little bit better. We'll have to wait and see with that. But the price is actually fairly reasonable to start, $12.99, and then it goes up to $16.99 with 8 cores, CPU, 8-core GPU, and the 16-core neural network or neural engine. Now, with that, though, you can actually add some storage, which they don't allow you to select currently on their website. So when you check it out, maybe it'll be $21.99 with 2 terabytes and more RAM. We're not really sure yet, but if it's matching that of the MacBook Pro, for example, maybe that's what it will be. Now, something else they made a big deal about is it has a 1080p camera. This is a new FaceTime camera that they say is the best on any Mac, and it's definitely needed on the Mac. It uses the M1 CPU to sort of make the image better overall, and I'm glad they did that. It also has a 6-speaker stereo system, or stereo speakers, with force-canceling woofers. Now, this is the same sort of technology we have in the MacBook Pro, and they sound incredible, so I wouldn't really expect them to sound any less incredible on this iMac. So along with that, it also has studio quality mics and supports Hey when you ask for the assistant. So you can use that if you want to use that. Now, something they changed that I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Some people I've seen commenting saying they thought it was bad, but they've moved the power supply outside of the iMac. And what they've done is given you a little sort of power supply similar to that of a MacBook, but also incorporated the Ethernet port directly into that. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing because if the power supply goes bad, you can just buy another plug. And then also it keeps your wires out of the way instead of running all the way up to the iMac, for example. So I kind of like that idea. And then it magnetically adheres to the back of the iMac, kind of like MagSafe, for example. So that's something I really like, that idea. It keeps it very clean behind the desk, no wires, just one wire, unless you're plugging things into the ports. And there's 4 different ports. So there's 2 USB normal USB-C type ports, and then 2 of them are Thunderbolt, and that's allowed by the M1. So I think the M1 only allows for 2 Thunderbolt ports, so Thunderbolt 3, USB 4, and you have those as your only plug-in ports on the back. So no SD card or anything like that, so you'll need a dock for that or some attachment, for example. So it has all of those things, and it's available to pre-order the 30th and comes out the second half of May. So I'm not sure what color to get. I do like the idea of it. I'm very surprised about the chin on the bottom of it, but maybe we'll see a 30-inch one at WWDC. Maybe we'll see something a little bit larger and a Pro version of that with more RAM and maybe more powerful CPU. I would expect something along those lines for the Pros very soon, or at least I hope so. That's only about a month and a half away. Something I almost forgot to mention is the new keyboards that come with the iMac. The iMac has all of these color-matched keyboards, as well as color-matched Magic Mouse or Magic Mice. It has all of the color-matched ones, but it also has the option for Touch ID. You can upgrade to Touch ID or Touch ID on a numeric keyboard, and you now have that option. It's something I've wanted for a long time on the bigger Macs, Mac Pro, or all those things, and we finally have it on the iMac. Hopefully we'll be able to buy an accessory, maybe one that we could pair, but that may require a separate chip inside. So I think that was pretty exciting. That's something I've wanted for a while, but why we don't have Face ID, that kind of baffles me a little bit. We have it on the iPad, but we don't have it on the iMac, or something that definitely has the room for those cameras. So maybe it will be on the Pro. We'll have to wait and see. Now, along with the iMac, the last thing Apple introduced was the new iPad. And the new iPad is, well, they announced 2 of them, an 11-inch and 12.9-inch, just like we have now, with some significant hardware upgrades. But the major upgrade goes to the 12.9-inch. It gets a new mini LED backlit display that they're calling Liquid Retina XDR. So that's the new display, and it goes super bright and should be really impressive for HDR. Now, the other thing that was a bit of a surprise is it has Apple's new M1 chipset inside of it and can get 16 gigs of RAM, up to 2 terabytes of storage. Basically what you get with a MacBook Pro now. If you buy the top of the line, you can go all the way up to those. So you've got all of those things, as well as Thunderbolt on the bottom. Now, the 11-inch gets all the other things except the mini LED display, but you have all of those options in silver or space gray, as well as 5G support, and then Apple touted Pro cameras. Now, the cameras on the back are very similar, but the Pro camera on the front is a new ultra-wide camera, 12 megapixel, 122 degree field of view, and it keeps you centered if maybe you're on a conference call, for example. It uses the neural engine to sort of follow you around. If someone else walks into the frame, it will follow you there. We've seen this before with, say, Microsoft's Kinect, for example. So these are things we've seen before, and I think this is very welcome on an iPad for conference calls, but it's odd to see this on an iPad and not a MacBook Pro, for example. It seems like all the new features come to iPad first and then to maybe iPhone and Mac. So that was a bit of a surprise. So all of those things are coming to the iPad, along with a white Magic Keyboard. So you have the option for a white Magic Keyboard now. And again, pre-order is the 30th, available on the second half of May. So M1, they had a very entertaining thing where Tim Cook sort of snuck into the Mac labs, stole the M1 CPU, and put it on the iPad. So that was great. If you haven't seen that, I definitely recommend watching the keynote. And I think out of all of these things, my favorite thing is the iMac. I was a little bit surprised. I'm a little disappointed because of the chin on the iMac, but I don't know that it'll be that much of a problem. I can't wait to try it out and see what it's like. But if you already have, say, an M1 MacBook Air or Pro, just buy a monitor at this point, unless you want that seamless sort of hardware experience. All of those colors are really nice, but I'm looking forward to maybe a larger version at WWDC or something like that. Maybe we'll see some Mac Pros there for the first time, or iMac Pros. So I'm looking forward to that. And this event was huge. All of these things are great. The Apple TV will be very welcome. I can't wait to try them all out, but we do have to wait a little bit. Let me know what you enjoyed the most out of the event, what you look forward to most if you're picking any of these things up. And iOS 14.5, if you haven't already seen this, it comes out next week. So the release candidate came out today after the announcement, and then the final version comes out next week at some point. So we'll have 14.5 coming out. If you're not buying any new hardware, at least you'll get that software upgrade as well. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, though, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.